Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I'm going to demonstrate yet another exercise that is being done in the Ice Cream Fitness 2.0 program. And in this case, it's called the standing press is what I'm calling it here, whereas in older lifters are going to know it simply as the press. And for those unfamiliar with that, that is a standing, relatively strict press done with a barbell. Now, it's not quite as strict as the military press, which is done with your heels together and completely locked knees and no movement. One thing you will note here, I do use on a lot of the reps when it's getting heavier, I use a little bit of hip drive, but we're not using leg drive. If you notice, my knees are pretty well locked. Sometimes there's a little bit of minor movement, but you're not doing like a front squat and then pressing it up like on a push press. And a couple of things we want to note here. You guys are going to notice I'm using wrist straps for this. That's important. This is one of these exercises that can be very, very tough on your wrists, particularly getting into the right position, getting the bar path ideal. It can be really hard on your wrists when you start going heavy. Now, I do have a slight bend in my wrist, but it's not as pronounced as you think. It's partially due to my little bit of the fisheye lens, and two, to the fact that just the way my wrists are, I cannot do straight wrists on any exercise. Like, I've bench pressed over 400 pounds before with, some slight bend in the wrist. I'm doing pretty close to what you'd call a bulldog grip, which if you notice, really the bar itself is sitting mostly above my wrist bone. But the key is that no matter what grip you choose to use on this, I'm going to tell most of you guys you want to mess with a thumb over grip as long as you can keep your elbows in front of you. And that's the whole point. I want you guys to notice when I unrack it, I get my hands right at shoulder width, same grip I use on a closed grip bench press, right? Exact same grip. So my thumbs are on the smooths. I am gripping that bar as tight as I possibly can. That's going to be one of your most important cues. The two things you always want on a lot of these exercises is, number one, gripping the bar as tight as you can. Number two, you notice the bar stays completely midfoot. If you watch that bar from the top to the bottom, the bar stays through the entire range of motion above my midfoot. It stays above my midfoot. So what you want to do is you want to walk up, grip that bar as hard as you can. Some of you might need to hold it about an inch above the chest. I personally choose to just unrack right on my chest. All right, I unrack it on my chest. My elbows are completely in front of me. All right, the elbow in the front position actually allows you to use a lot more tricep on this exercise. That's why one of the reasons we don't have extra tricep work in this program for you guys. It's not necessary. We don't have to deal with the tendonitis. We don't have to deal with any of that because we already have benching. And for a lot of you, I'm going to recommend a medium grip or even a closed grip. And then we have this closer grip standing press. Done correctly, this is actually a very effective tricep builder, and it actually brings the long head in more than most other presses do. But there's EMG data on that this exercise actually works the triceps considerably harder than other overhead presses do, up to 40% more muscle activation. So this is a very tricep dominant press. Another thing you're going to notice, you got the knees locked, my toes slightly out. Very, very similar stance to my squat, right? Very similar stance to the squat. You'll notice that I brace my core on every single rep. I want you to notice I take a deep breath and I lay back. Why am I laying back? It's to pull the bar in closer, because what you don't want to have happen, one of your biggest energy bleeds and one of the reasons guys hurt their shoulders frequently on overhead pressing, Smith machines are really bad about this. Seated is really bad about this. In order to clear your head, you have to let the bar drift way out in front. But if you lay back just a little bit, you can touch your chest, almost like on a really steep incline, so we get upper chest involvement. Get more tricep involvement by getting deeper and getting a stretch on the tricep, and then you drive it up. And you'll notice the bar is not completely in a straight line. One of the things I want you guys to notice is that the bar goes back. So what you're trying to do on this exercise, you take a deep breath on every rep. So you want completely full lungs when you're at the bottom. You want to be gripping the bar as hard as you can. You want a deep breath. And this is one of these exercises that a belt is actually useful on if you choose to use one, because you can really brace your core, your abs against that belt. And you explode out of the bottom. And a lot of times you'll notice that involves just a little bit of hip movement. Even if you try to do this strict, when you do that layback and you're squeezing everything tight, you're squeezing your core tight, you're squeezing your glutes tight, you're going to activate a lot of times a little bit of hip drive, and you explode up as hard and as fast as you can with full lungs. One of the other things you want to do on this to maintain a straight line, you want to visualize throwing the bar behind your head. And even if you don't get it behind your head that far, because for me, sometimes if I let my shoulder mobility go, I can't get my my head to follow through the same way. As you guys notice in these, I haven't been keeping my shoulder mobility up as much the last couple of weeks, and it's actually is making it harder on some of these to do that. But ideally, you want to try to push your head forward and you throw the bar behind your head. By doing that, you usually activate more trap and more rear delt and everything, making it a more complete exercise, and it is less likely to put a strain on your shoulders that you don't want, because what happens is that letting the bar drift too far in front of you at any point is where you can really run into forces on your shoulders that you don't really want. That's going to end up making you pull something, or you're going to have some pain in your shoulder that you don't want, because it's not really a good position for it to be in. So the lay back, the deep breath, elbows in front of you, and then pushing it up and then throwing it behind your head. And it's not necessarily always going to go behind your head, but that is what you want to visualize. And on the way back down, I take a deep breath again, right? So you want full lungs at the bottom. And I want to emphasize that, like I've talked about in a lot of other things, having a deep breath, bracing your core, and having full lungs at the start of an exercise increases neuromuscular efficiency, right? This increases stability. It increases muscle activation. Gripping the bar as hard as you can on this exercise will increase muscle activation, right? These are things that we want that improve neuromuscular efficiency. By lifting it as explosively as you can and driving up as hard as possible, we're also increasing muscle activation, and that increased muscle activation is going to give us more muscle growth. And this is going to be an all-around exercise for building your upper body. I mean, this is one of the premier exercises for building your entire shoulder girdle, your upper chest. Like if you get strong on this exercise, you don't necessarily need things like incline benching. This will build your upper chest. It'll build your front delts, but it will also contribute significantly to your side delts, your rear delts, your trapezius. There's EMG data on this study showing that particularly if you try to throw it behind your head, you focus on that, or try to shrug at the top if possible, it actually will activate your traps almost as much as doing a shrug will, right? That makes it a fantastic exercise for the entire shoulder girdle. The standing version with a barbell actually recruits the posterior head of the deltoid more than a lot of other overhead presses do also, in addition to the triceps. And that's really where this exercise wins, is going to be the tricep and the core activation. And that's something that you do not get with seated versions at all. That's something you do not get with seated versions, and that makes it a superior exercise for those things, because what we're trying to do, this is a fairly minimalist program. You're hitting a pretty high amount of volume, a lot of heavy lifting on a few basic exercises. And so what we're doing is we're selecting exercises that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. And because this exercise works the triceps different than it does the bench press, it gets a little more long head in, which gets neglected. It's the most tricep dominant version of the overhead press. It's actually the best trapezius building version of the overhead press. And it works the core, it works your abs, works your spinal erectors, right? Since it works all of those things to some extent, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck. We're getting a lot of bang for our buck. This is an exercise that is just going to put a lot of size on you, and it's going to put a lot of size on you in places that some of these other exercises don't, because it works the upper chest, because it works the long head of the tricep, because it works the traps, because it works all three heads of the delt to some extent. This exercise is going to shore up a lot of the weak links that you're going to miss with a lot of the other movements. If you just do squat, bench, and deadlift, you're going to miss some of those things, right? You're going to miss some of those things. This will balance it out. This exercise, because of the extra posterior delt and trap and everything, is one of the reasons we can get away with a little less rowing, right? A little less rowing and things like that, because we're bridging the gap here. And this exercise will absolutely increase your bench press. If you want to go to exercise that will increase your bench press, the strict standing press like this will improve your bench. So it'll help your bench go up faster, which in turn will help your chest and everything else grow. So again, this exercise is critical. It's important that you learn to do it right. It's important that you do it standing. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.